and he lied to Megyn Kelly's face, and definitely not a good idea to lie to her face and try to humiliate her on her own tour. I personally would have strongly advised against it, okay? If somebody said, is this a good idea? I would have said, yeah, you know what? Let's maybe not do that. But it happened. And it's important to stress here that this was not just a simple mistake that Ben made.
I think that what Candace Owens is doing right now is evil. It is evil what she's doing right now.
My position is it's really none of my business. And
why is it? But I have a question. Why is it none of your business? I mean, you comment on these things for a living.
I'm not mother of the internet.
No, but if this were on the left and somebody were accusing Charlie Kirk of his wife having murdered him, I assume that you would be talking about it.
Is that what Candace is accusing Erica of?
Yes.
In this video, we're diving deep into a huge fight within the right wing, featuring major conservative figures Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, Megyn Kelly, and the broader faction war happening inside conservative media right now. This is not a calm disagreement, it's raw infighting, fueled by Israel commentary, personal accusations, and some outright lies that blow the whole thing wide open. What you're about to watch is a clash where one side is clearly winning, and the other is tripping over their own narrative. We're talking ego, misinformation, and public backstabbing. Let's break it down.
There is quite a bit of infighting happening in what is considered to be the American right, right-wing pundits, conservatives, and it really has to do with disagreements about Israel. Let's just keep it real. There is the half of the Republican base that wants to defend and support anything and everything Israel does. And then there's the younger crowd that's a little more savvy to the reality that the US alliance to Israel has been detrimental to the American people. I'm not on the right, but I certainly agree with the latter. Candace Owens, to her credit, also agrees that the US relationship with Israel is detrimental, and that has made her a target. She got fired from the Daily Wire as a result of her commentary about Israel. And things have only gotten more spicy since then. Now, Megyn Kelly is currently doing a tour in front of live audiences, and she's had various figures on her, tour to speak about various issues. Some of them spicy, some of them just the typical policy-related stuff. And recently, she had Ben Shapiro on. Now, what was interesting is, for the first time in my life, I'm watching Candace Owens's show pretty much on a regular basis. I think, she says things that I don't agree with, that's for sure. But I really appreciate what she has to say about what's been going down in Gaza. I agree with her on Israel for sure. And I find what she has to say about the investigation into the assassination of Charlie Kirk both fascinating, and I think what she's doing is justified because our authorities, our FBI, has, in my opinion, bungled this investigation. And there are all sorts of weird inconsistencies that I personally would like answers to. Now, some people are uncomfortable with Candace Owens doing her own investigation, acting as a sleuth. But the reason why I tell you guys I watch her podcast regularly is because I know what she has claimed and what she hasn't claimed. With that in mind, let's take a look at what Ben Shapiro had to say about Candace Owens as he was on one of her, live speaking tour events.
I think you and I differ on our angle with regard to, for example, Candace Owens. I think that what Candace Owens is doing right now is evil. It is evil what she is doing right now. Okay, and I say that again.
But what?
Because
I didn't opine on whether it's evil or not. But my position is it's really none of my business. And
why is it? But I have a question. Why is it none of your business? I mean, you comment on these things for a living.
I'm not mother of the internet.
No, but if this were on the left and somebody were accusing Charlie Kirk of his wife having murdered him, I assume that you would be talking about it.
Is that what Candace is accusing Erica of?
Yes.
Of murdering her own husband?
This is the moment where the accusation gets escalated into complete fiction. Perfect pause to explain how Shapiro is fabricating claims Candace never said. Then comes the real twist. Candace never accused Erica Kirk of murdering her husband. Not even close. In fact, her audience was pushing her in that direction, and she defended Erica. So when Ben Shapiro tells Megyn Kelly otherwise, it's not mistaken. It's a straight up lie used to corner Megyn into trashing Candace publicly. That's the part of the right wing infighting that's so dirty. It's not about truth, it's about forcing alliances through public shaming. The creator even breaks down how gross this is. Trying to weaponize friendship and loyalty as a purity test is just weak, cowardly behavior masquerading as political integrity.
Now, Megyn Kelly, from what I gather, is not watching Candace's show, certainly not as regularly as I have recently, right? So she's confronted with something that I imagine she would find appalling, but it's a lie. Candace Owens has never said anything about Charlie Kirk's wife being involved in assassinating her own husband. She hasn't even alluded to it. In fact, her audience, if you read the comments, a lot of people in her audience are like urging her to look into Erica Kirk. But all I've seen her do is defend Erica Kirk. So that's just something to keep in mind. Like a lie like that, whatever you might feel about Candace Owens, you have to be fair. And a lie like that is pretty freaking gross. And it's especially gross to do it in real time to someone who's supposed to be your friend in order to get that individual to engage in a public condemnation of someone you don't like, Candace Owens. I thought that was so below the belt and honestly a pretty scummy thing to do. Here's the second part of that exchange.
She's accusing TPUSA insiders and other members of the right wing, including Seth Dillon, of being involved in the murder of Charlie Kirk. Yes.
Okay. Like I said, I don't take in that content, which is an honest statement. I don't have time to watch Candace's show.
I believe you. I believe you. But the point that I'm making is that when
what I understand
friendship
Candace
should
to
not,
have
in
been
our
doing.
business, I think it's important. Listen,
And Candace
friendship
and I are
should
not
not
friends.
trump.
We don't even know each other.
I understand, but even with Tucker, friendship should not trump our manifest requirement to speak out when people do and say things that are both detrimental to conservatism and morally wrong.
This line is where Shapiro tries to moralize his smear. Perfect pause to point out the double standard. He only speaks out when it protects his narrative. Then Megyn Kelly steps in and fact checks the whole thing, and this is where the tide turns. She admits outright, it's not true. Candace has not made that claim. And just like that, Ben's story collapses. This is the moment where you can clearly tell who's winning this fight. Candace Owens. Why? Because even her critics acknowledge the truth of what they investigate. The rest of the segment finally deals with grief, frustration, and the messy process of doing your own investigation when the FBI drops the ball. That part humanizes Candace, something Shapiro Schmier tries to erase.
So I think part of the reason why this moment triggered me in particular is because, and I want everyone who's watching this to know this about me, just in case something comes up in the future where people try to egg me on or encourage me to denounce someone that's close to me or denounce someone I work with. Don't come at me and urge me to condemn people to prove my virtue. You get what I'm saying? Like, I find that so utterly disgusting and gross. And it's happened to me in that, people were mad at me over an opinion that I have. And then like a little mob will reach out to John Idarola or whoever I'm associated with, and demand a public condemnation of my opinion and what I had to say. And I just want to be very clear about how I feel about individuals who give into that pressure. It's bitch behavior. People are allowed to have their own opinions. And if they decide on their own that someone else has said something, a friend of mine, a colleague of mine has engaged in commentary that I disagree with, if they themselves decide on their own to respond to it or comment on it, that's totally fine. That is 100% okay. But giving into a mob that's like, do you condemn? Do you condemn? Do you condemn? You need to condemn. Do you condemn? They're the worst people. I can't stand them. And I think even less of the individuals who give in to that pressure, just keeping it real. Now, Megyn Kelly didn't give in to that pressure and later decided to fact check the claims that Ben Shapiro made. Let's take a look.
He said that Candace has been claiming Erica Kirk was behind the murder of Charlie, which I had not heard. And I was taken aback because that seems like something I would have heard. It's so crazy. And I have since learned it is not true. Candace has not made that claim. And in fact, I've now seen several clips of Candace specifically defending Erica Kirk and saying she would never make a claim like that about Erica, and that she is open-minded to other people at Turning Point. That's obvious. She's been making that point. I had heard that point. But she's specifically been defending Erica Kirk. And she's been saying she does not think that of Erica. And in fact, if you read her comments, she's under pressure to make comments about Erica. And so far, what I've seen, she hasn't.
So the facts matter. You might think what Candace is doing is wrong, but you have to at least be accurate about what Candace is actually saying. You can't, smear her as someone who's going around pointing fingers at Erica Kirk when that's not what's actually happening. Now, just based on what she has said, she does seem to think that there are people within the Turning Point organization who are part of some sort of cover up. And to be fair to her, she keeps providing, evidence in the form of text exchanges and that end up, bolstering or reinforcing the arguments that she's making. But again, I just want all of you to consider, if someone close to you, and Charlie was close to her, was publicly assassinated like that, and you have Kash Patel as the head of the FBI, and from the very beginning, he's bungled all of it. Yeah, you're going to want to know the truth. You want justice for your friend. I would be beside myself if I were in Candace's shoes. And by the way, let's also acknowledge, she is grieving the loss of her friend. And when you're in the process of grieving, I remember after Michael Brooks died, for 6 months straight, I was probably the most unbearable person to work with. I was deeply depressed. And I remember Brett Ehrlich at one point, because I snapped at him. I don't even remember what it was about. But Brett Ehrlich, to his credit, finally spoke up and he's like, you got to stop doing this. And that was when I realized I've been grieving. I have not processed it in a healthy way. So that's when I just decided I'm going to get help and I'm going to speak to a therapist and try to get myself out of this depressive state, because I'm taking this out on other people. You don't know how people handle this level of grief. And so, I just think, even if you disagree with Candace Owens, have a little bit of grace, maybe a little bit. Now, with that in mind, Candace Owens has weighed in on this whole debacle as well. Let's take a look at what she has to say.
This is where Candace responds directly and obliterates Ben's justification. A great stopping point to highlight how she calls the lie premeditated and weaponized.
This was not just a simple mistake that Ben made, right? That's always a possibility, that Ben really thought maybe he's backstage and sees something on Twitter and somebody said, Candace just said that Erica Kirk murdered Charlie, and then he gets on stage and he repeats it. Maybe it's just an accident. Highly unlikely, but of course you have to run that plausibility. But we can now confirm that that certainly was not the case. This was not a simple mistake, because in the days following it, he didn't recant. He did not modify. He did not correct. He has a platform. He could have just come out and said, oh, I got the details wrong. Nope. This was a premeditated and a post-meditated lie, okay? Intended to morally blackmail Megyn into a position to decide right now on the spot whether you are going to stand with evil Candace, who was accusing Erica Kirk of murdering her own husband. And that lie backfired gloriously.
It did backfire, and it was a gross thing to do. It really was. This is how you lose. I just think I think those on the right who are very concerned about criticism toward Israel, who want to do anything and everything possible to protect Israel, including smearing their own fellow Americans into silence, basically, so they stop criticizing Israel. your actions are making things worse for your cause. So stop doing it. Just stop doing it. Don't lie. Don't pressure people during their own tour to condemn people that you don't like. Because guess what? The entire world sees it. The country sees it. They don't like it. So it's not helping your cause. It is backfiring. I can't stand this kind of behavior. Just be honest. And if you don't like what Candace is doing, that's totally fine. Just say it. Share your point of view. But don't smear people. Don't lie about people. And more importantly, please stop with the guilt by association garbage. Megyn Kelly will condemn Candace if she feels the need to do it. She's her own person. She has agency. Everyone has their own agency. They can make their own decisions. Please stop with like the mob behavior. No one likes it.
In the end, this whole thing shows exactly why the right is imploding over Israel. Instead of honest debates, they're lying, manipulating, and mob-enforced ideological obedience. Shapiro's attempt to corner Megyn Kelly publicly backfired because people can see through the theatrics. Candace may be controversial, but in this specific fight, she is in the right. She's telling the truth. She's providing receipts, and she's resisting the guilt by association mob. Meanwhile, Shapiro looks desperate, doubling down on a lie instead of correcting it. This isn't just a disagreement. This is the right wing eating itself alive and doing it in the most public way possible. Thank you for watching and listening to our video. Please like and subscribe to our channel. We'll talk to you on the next video.